This is Matt from Dice Roundtable. Thanks for joining me for another video. Please subscribe to the channel if you appreciate the content. Find in the description ways to find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our website. And follow us those ways. And on to this video. Bolt Action, Second Edition, and we're going to be talking about vehicles. I'm going to use the book as my outline. And so we're going to be vehicle rules are on page 98. That's where they start. So let's talk about some vehicles. So you have wheeled, tracked, or wheeled, tracked, half track. Yeah. And half tracks are like tracked vehicles. So when measuring, you're going to measure from the front, rear, side, whatever the outer part is. Quick note on basing vehicles, that's up to you. I do not base mine because this has not happened to me yet, but I've heard stories. This only fits where it fits. So if you're playing on a table and someone puts walls this far apart, your vehicle can't go between the walls. Your vehicle has to fit. That's including the base. So keep that in mind about basing. If the base in the vehicle can't fit, no go. Unless a friendly game and you come up with an understanding. Orders. Vehicles take order dice just like everything else, like infantry. The only exception is down orders. Vehicles only get a down order if it's something special. So if a vehicle fails a morale check or order check, it will go down. Really quick skim from my head, not a morale check. I can't think of any time they'll take a morale check. Flamethrowers maybe, but they'll go down then. Or if on the vehicle damage chart, it'll tell you if you go down. And maybe that's because they had a run order and something hit them and caused them to go down. Let's talk about down order. Let's say they failed an order check. This has to do a backwards move away from the closest enemy if it fails an order check. So it just wants to back away and then it goes down. When we're talking about backing up, it moves half its distance. Okay, so if you get 12, it only goes backwards 6. Let's talk about vehicles and pinning. Read this if you want. It's very interesting when you read this. It's page 101, 102. I feel some of this stuff gets lost very often in the rules. Inexperienced vehicles. If you're shooting at any enclosed vehicle, so this is enclosed, this is open. This is a soft skin because it's just a truck. This has an armor value. This is an open-topped armored vehicle. This has an armor value, but it's open-top. Anything can hurt this. Anything can pin this because it's open-topped. This is what I'm about to talk about. So we'll go through that one more time. Anything can hurt this and pin this. It's a 6+ soft skin. This is open top, so anything can shoot it, especially including rifles, because it's open topped, and give it a pin. You can only hurt it if you got a penetration that can beat the armor value. We're going to talk about this now. If this was an inexperienced Panther, anything shooting this with a +1 penetration will cause a pin. It doesn't have to hurt it. As long as it has a +1 penetration, the crew inside is skittish enough that they will take a pin. So, if you don't have to bring inexperienced vehicles, don't, especially if they're armored. 2, let's talk about it. We'll talk about veterans, because that's next on the list. I'll go, like I said, I'm going to use this as an outline. You need to be able to hurt this to pin this. Veteran vehicles are really nice. So if you're shooting at a heavy tank with a 10+ penetration or armor value on a D6 plus the penetration You've got to be able to hurt this. Now remember, if it's indirect, it's hitting on the top, so it gets a +1. If you're shooting at the rear, shooting at the sides, remember, add those penetration values. If you come up with a penetration value, let's say 9, that's your max. You don't roll, then determine. Just if it has potential. So 6 plus whatever, if it equals the number value, you can give it a pin. And then you got to roll to see if you actually do it. For veteran vehicles. Now let's talk about regular vehicles. And I'm going to read the rule book. Fully enclosed regular vehicles that take a hit with a pen value of at least +1 that can actually damage them, just like veterans, take a pin as normal. If the regular vehicle takes a hit with a pen value of at least +1 that cannot damage it, so let's say it's a 9+ vehicle, you get a D6 plus let's say it's an light autocannon, so that's a +2 shooting at the front armor. 6 plus 2 is 8. This is a 9, no go. No penetration, which means no pin. Same shot on the side. We have penetration, it's taking a pin. Okay? If a regular vehicle takes a hit with a pen value of at least +1 that cannot damage it, it rolls a dice and takes a pin only on a 1 to 3, while on a 4+ it ignores the hit. So that light autocannon shot in the front, you will determine a D6 plus 2 is 8. You will roll 1 dice. On a 1, 2, or 3, it gets a pin. On a 4+, no pin. Let that sink in for a minute on regular vehicles. If you can hurt it, it's going to get a pin. If it's not able to actually hurt it, but has a penetration value, 1, 2, or 3 on 1d6 gets a pin on the vehicle. 4+, ignore the pin. So it's a nice little hybrid with inexperienced. Effects or pins are the same. Vehicle movement, I talked about that. I talked about terrain. Really quick, remember, if you're on a road, you get to double your movement as long as you end on a road. Obstacles like anti-tank traps are going to stop you, and like hedges, if they're declared as impassable and you don't have hedge cutters. Otherwise, let's just say wheeled vehicles, open ground, and roads. Tracked vehicles, half tracks. The chart's on 103, or usually it's top left corner on your rules reference sheet. So tracked vehicles, open ground, they can advance through rough terrain, so woods and fords on rivers, stuff like that. Buildings, a special exception, if you check out my building video, heavy and super heavy tanks can break down buildings. It's possible. Okay, vehicle weapons. Okay, so arcs are going out at angles, out the front, out the side. That will determine your front, side, back. If you pop a hatch to fire a pintle-mounted machine gun, you are open-topped at that point. So consider that carefully when you do that. Most tanks will have coaxial in the descriptions. That means like a Sherman can do a coaxial machine gun or their main gun. It'll also have a hull mounted. So if you are shooting infantry in your front arc, you have 2 machine guns. They can both fire. They can have separate targets. So you can fire everything you got unless the entry has special rules. Pintle mounted, case mounted. Oh, if it's case mounted, which I don't have one with me, like a lot of German vehicles are anti-tank vehicles. Case mounted means it's got one direction. Now, when a vehicle shoots, it can fire with all its weapons it carries. Each weapon can shoot at a different target. That is on page 105. Same mount, that's similar to coaxial. Rolling. Oh, okay, let's talk about the damage chart. So, When firing at a vehicle, rear armor gives you +2 penetration, +1 penetration on the side and top. Front armor, no benefits. There are special exceptions, especially for the Panther and the Tiger. So that's that. Oh, long range, anything shooting with a penetration value at long range, -1, unless it's a shaped charge. So Panzerfaust, Panzerschreck, and bazookas. And we talked about that. Hits from HE. Oh, yeah. So when a vehicle is hit by an HE shell, the template is placed as close as possible. So the vehicle center is in the center of the template. I talked about this with a little bit HE implications on infantry regiments or formations. So you want that template centered. If it clips something else, go for it. Oh, and you know what? I didn't talk about that either. So let's say you're shooting, let's say there's two armored vehicles really next to each other. If you center the template and you actually clip another one, then that is here. HE shots, even though they are placed in the center of the vehicle, hit the facing of the front armor, unless it's indirect. If a vehicle is caught under the template of an HE shot directed at a different unit, always use the front armor value of the vehicle. It's just a shrapnel. So, something else you can think about if your opponent's placing this close to infantry, if you can maximize the right number of infantry and then clip this, you've got a chance to hurt it. Weapons chart. Okay, let's talk about superficial, massive, and full damage. So, you've penetrated. You're going to roll and see when you penetrate, what is your roll. So let's say it's, I don't know, let's take a super heavy anti-tank gun against a 9+ armored vehicle. You roll a d6. So 9 + 5 is 14. That beats the 9 by, oh no, super heavy, 7. 7 + 5 is, is 12. So 12 beats 9 by 3, which means massive damage. If a weapon beats the damage value of a target by a total of 3 or more, then the player rolls twice on the damage chart. So, if you equal 9 on a Sherman, for example, you're going to roll a d6 -3, and that will be your result on the damage chart when you roll your d6. So, roll to hit, roll to penetrate. If you do penetrate, roll again on the damage chart. If you damage the tank by hitting its armor value more but less than 3, so again, if I roll 10, I beat the armor value of 9, I have a hit, I'm going to roll a d6 and apply that result straight. But if you roll 3 or more, so in the case of this, a 12, you get to roll twice and apply both results. Okay. Oh, turret jam. This is not everyone plays with this rule, so keep that in mind. So turret jam, a turret has the advantage, so a lot of the vehicles. When you inflict the damage result, roll a d6. On a 1 to 3, nothing happens. 4 to 6, the gun is jammed. So if the Sherman was shooting something off to the side, the gun is now locked in place with a side shot only. Let's see. Open tops hit by indirect fire. HE fired at an open top vehicle gets a +1 to the penetration. So again, if you're hitting the top armor for indirect and it's HE open top, you got a +2. Situation, there's a special case 109, page 109 about vehicle crew can get out. So when a vehicle is destroyed, roll d3 to determine how many crewmen make it out alive. Place the appropriate number of miles around the wrecked vehicle. Now roll 2d6 and move the crewmen in the indicated inches back towards their own line. So they have their way to escape if you're playing a special scenario. Okay, so now there's a lot about vehicles, so I'm just going to go through it. Assault moves. Infantry can assault tanks. So you have a tank shock effect. So assault move, only tanks are allowed to make an assault move to close quarters. Note that by tanks we also mean anything includes an assault gun, tank destroyers, and other armored vehicles, all of which must be 8+, which means half tracks? No, they're 7s. To assault enemy infantry, you're going to take a run order and charge them. The tank begins its assault move more than 6 inches away. The infantry can respond and shoot at the tank. Work out the assault as described. If further enemy, once this is done, complete the tank's remaining movement if necessary. If the tank would otherwise end its movement on top of the enemy infantry as assaulted, move the infantry models aside to get out of the way. If more than one infantry model or artillery unit lies in the path of the tank, such cases assaults are worked out one at a time. So, if you have infantry screening a mortar team, charges through and can move through, you're assaulting them and them. Any further units, close quarters. Tank's assault is worked out differently from close combat infantry. As soon as the tank is moved into contact, take a morale check for the target infantry or artillery units. If the check has failed, the assaulted unit surrenders or scatters and is considered destroyed, including fanatics. If the morale check is passed, the soldiers hold their nerve and allow the behemoth to pass. The tank makes its remaining move and may end up either within the formation or beyond. Where infantry models that have been assaulted would otherwise end up, an artillery piece that is assaulted by a tank is automatically destroyed whether its morale check is passed or not. So that means if I got an anti-tank gun here and I'm able to move through this, it's crushed. And then the crew, if they survive, could reman another gun if it's within 12 inches, but most people usually only have one gun. Okay. Take that to the side. Tank versus tank. Now let's do this. Medium tank versus medium tank. Although it's not unknown for tanks to literally ram enemy tanks, a tank with a damage rating of 8+ or greater is allowed to make an assault against a vehicle of any kind. If a tank wishes to assault another tank, rather than a soft skin armored car or similar vehicle, it must make its order test with a -3 modifier. That's pretty hefty. So you have to take a morale check to see if you'll do it. If you do, it's going to move within contact. Roll a d6 for each vehicle. If either vehicle is an armored vehicle, add its damage value. The highest scoring vehicle is the winner. So these are both 9s. I would roll. I got a 6 and a 6. That means they're both 15. If they're equal, they're both losers. They are destroyed outright if they are soft skins. If the losers are unarmored, then roll on the damage chart. If we had a heavy versus a medium, this is a full hit. This is a superficial hit. So that will be a tie. This would say this won. Winners take no damage if they have a damage value greater than the loser. For example, a heavy tank takes no damage ran by a lighter tank and wins the assault. If the winners have equal damage value, then they both suffer superficial damage. Each vehicle will then have a down order. So if you charge another tank that has no order dice on it, you're going to pull their order dice out, and they now have a down order. Now we got infantry. Infantry can attack vehicles. If you give a run order to a vehicle, they cannot be assaulted. If they have an advance or regular, they can. Tank fear. This infantry must pass a morale check with a -3. Now, if they have grenades, Panzerfaust, or some other anti-armor weapon, then they do not have to take a tank fear check. They will pass because they are prepared to attack tanks. If we're within 6 inches, like this, no response. Over 6, you can react. So what you're going to do is every unit in the infantry, so let's say it's here, the infantry are going to charge, and they're going to be basically trying to pry open the hatches, shoving grenades wherever they can to blow up the tank. So it's on 113. Infantry will score a hit on a die roll of 4, 5, or 6. So everyone gets a roll a die. So this is a 2, 4, 6, 7. I will roll 7 dice. 4, 5, and 6 is hit. If it's a hit, you count up how many hits you have. That's your penetration value. Then take a d6 and roll that. Add that number to your penetration. If you get to penetrate, then you treat the damage like normal. Soft skins and open-top vehicles are automatically destroyed. Armored vehicles, you're going to roll on the damage chart like normal. That was another chunky section with some vehicles, mainly tank focus. So I know I had the book out, but I also want to reference the book for you so you can see that I was reading out of the book and give you the page numbers. And I know it's probably not the most thrilling, but gives you a lot of thought about what you can do with the tank. Personally, I have not seen many tank-on-tank rammings. It is something I'm really intrigued to try. The pinning on vehicles is really important. Keep that in the back of your head when you're taking regular vehicles. Most players will remember the veteran rule, but not the regular rule. Again, that's kind of a kicker. So keep that in mind. As veterans vehicles, probably the best to take if you can, sure. But try to stay away from the inexperienced. So either way, thanks for checking out the video, and